Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Shane Jacob, certified life coach, professional horseman, entrepreneur, and author. Please enjoy Shane Jacob. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm here with Shane Jacob, certified life coach, professional horseman, entrepreneur, and author. Welcome to the podcast.
Mari, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I love your message and to talk about creativity, so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you join me to talk about creativity. But before we get there, why don't you take just a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure will. I'm in the horse business. As a young man, I always wanted to be a cowboy and do all the cool things that cowboys do. I mastered one of those. One of the things that I thought cowboys did as a young man was drink a lot, and so I conquered that one early on, and I had a pretty serious bout with alcoholism and an addiction with alcohol for over a period of years. And I'm thankful to be here. I made it through, I like to say, with the help of horses and the grace of God. I was able to kind of break free from that prison that I caused myself. And today I'm still in the horse industry. I've done a lot of things in the horse industry. And I will just say that as I looked back, I had so much pain and destruction that I caused for other people and myself for such a long period of time. At one point, I looked back and I said, man, I just wish I would have known that, because I might be able to save myself some of this grief. And that's one of the things that spurred our coaching program that we do now.
That's amazing. And if you want to share a little bit about the coaching program, because I know it's a big part of what you do and have shared with many people, because I imagine there's a lot of creativity that went into creating it and also sharing it.
That's true. So we have a program called the Stable Living Program where we talk to, the thing of it is the transition to adulthood. I mean, it's a big deal. It's hard. You'd think I couldn't remember at this stage of the game, but I can, man. It's a hard deal. And it's not just hard for the teens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For every teen, there's a parent or two, or sometimes four or more parents, right? That are all involved in this dynamic. And the parents are not having an easy go at this either. They're dealing with guilt and shame for what their kid's done and is doing, and they're unhappy. And so there's this time of life, this transition to adulthood for kids and parents is I'm very happy that our creativity, I mean, I have a lot of big goals, but we're helping people one at a time right now to improve that part of their life. And that's a big deal.
Yeah. And that's wonderful to be able to impact people so directly in that really pivotal transition phase in life, young adulthood to adulthood. Well, when you think about creativity in your life or in the work that you do, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Well, that's a good question. To me, creativity means, when I think of creativity, I think of like what is driving us, our desires. I think they're divinely instilled, and I think that our desires mean something. I think a lot of times we look at our desires and we might feel like we might not deserve to go after them, or we might think like, well, I've got to do more important stuff because I'm a responsible human being and I can't really go for that extra fluff and extracurricular stuff. I don't view it that way. I believe that our desires are these uh, that are important. They're a part of who our unique individuality as human
Mhm.
beings, that are our own unique. We're a totally unique creation, and I believe those desires behind those, if we move forward in what we're doing is we're creating somehow in a myriad of ways, our contribution to the world. And,
Mm.
and, and it can be so many different things, but and I believe that that this creation behind the desires behind behind I believe that if we're willing to go through the process to create whatever it is that's driving us, that we're going to be able to have an impact on people and on our lives. And I think it's really important that we listen to that, because there's a lot of reasons that we snuff out those voices that are telling us, hey man, go for it, or hey,
Mhm.
you have this to share. And I think there's a lot of reasons why we don't do it. And I think it's really important for the, I don't think it's just, I don't think it's just because we'll feel better. I think it's because of what we have to give
Mm.
the world.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. So when did you start like listening to those voices of follow the desire, follow the passion?
It's an ongoing thing. I try to listen to it as much as I can. I just started to write, my first book right now. I'm in process. But, I'll tell you one thing that I've noticed in myself
Mhm.
and I've noticed in other people. Some of the things that I've noticed is that one thing is what I mentioned. We hear a desire that says, hey, do this, go for it. Why don't you do this? Make this creation, right? And
Mhm.
whatever it might be. In my case, we'll use my book, for example.
Mhm.
So some of the things that we think about is the first thing that I mentioned is like, I don't have time for that, man. I've got to provide a living. I'm responsible for this, and I got payments that I'm doing, and so that, is unimportant. I totally disagree with that sentiment.
Mm.
The second thing that happens a lot to a lot of us, is really why we don't go for it, is we don't have the motivation, because we just think that, hey, it's already been done. Nobody's really going to care. Nobody's going to pay
Mhm.
attention to what I do. I'm just what's one little small little person. And probably, I mean, I don't even know if I have a unique thing. Maybe somebody else did it. And that's also untrue. I mean, there's nobody like you. No
Mhm.
one has your perspective, your background, your total DNA and everything. The third thing I think is the biggest one, and this is what I'm about, and this is my message to the world, and that is that we don't have the confidence just to let it be out there.
Mm.
What if not a lot of people care? And what if they criticize it? And what if, and so we kind of come back inside of ourselves, and we withhold our contribution that I think it's our responsibility to do.
Yeah. So how how have you kind of worked with those doubts or holding back, or how do you keep moving forward?
Yeah. Appreciate that question. Um, what just comes about, the biggest part of it, I believe, comes back to our beliefs about ourselves.
Mm.
We have no problem in consuming, right? And a lot of us is
Yeah.
just like, I mean, if I think it's a lot of it's awareness. I mean, like, how
Mm.
much are you shopping? How much are you online? How much are you on social media? How much are you like eating and, just like totally consuming and listening to
Yeah.
all the radio channels and TV channels and, there's so much stuff that we can consume. I think a lot of times if we don't pay attention or we're intentional with our lives, it's like we just become like a vacuum for consumption. And we
Mm.
don't think about, you know,
Hmm.
there's no kind of balance here. Like, what am I doing? As simple as like, am I making as many comments as I'm seeing posts? Or, I don't know if that's a real good analogy, but still, am I just totally taking everything in? Because I think it really puts us, I think it creates an imbalance that is
Hmm.
truly, it's not healthy. And so coming back to the why and how to make a difference, if to make the difference, that I feel it's your responsibility. I think one of the biggest first steps is just to know just to have the confidence, and it's a choice and it's something that can be developed, and
Mm-hmm.
to know that, that your unique contribution, only you have that.
Mm-hmm.
Only I have. Let's just say that here's what I've decided, okay? And maybe these thoughts that I have, you might be able to contemplate adopting for yourself. Here's what I have. If I write my book and it's not a bestseller, I'm great with that. Okay. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
do everything I can to make sure that it is a bestseller. But if it's not, I will not have that voice in the back of my head saying, you didn't do it. You didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do it. You didn't know. And here's the other thing. What if what if I do accomplish my book and one person reads it and it totally makes a difference in their life that
Yeah.
affects not only that one soul, but it has a trajectory of affecting all the people around this one person. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just one. Okay. And it's not likely that it'll only be one, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so I have decided that I can accept failure, which is part of self-confidence. I don't care if my book's a total flop.
Mm-hmm.
I've accepted that I'm going to be happy with me, that if I write it, and that if one person has a some sort of positive impact, that I'm going to be okay.
Mm.
I think a lot of times, Mari, that we also think that it's like, well, what do I have to offer? What do I have? You know,
Sure. Yeah.
like, I mean, I'm just over here living my life, doing my thing. And I mean, like, what do you mean create? Like what? I'm not an artist. I don't sing very well. I don't know how to, edit video. What am I supposed to do? And I believe that we all do though,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's worth thinking about and discovering for yourself, because there is something in your desire
Yeah.
that's driving you, that you want to do. And it could be so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's just to expand the world and yourself and the world around you. I think it's just so important.
I agree. I think it is so important. And I think we all have that within ourselves. And like you said, those voices that tell us we're not good enough or we can't or we don't have the confidence, and those pieces of working to overcome them or move through them is so important. So you can share the story or the whatever it is you're passionate about that you want to offer to someone else. I'm curious, in your own life, in your experience, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
Well, that's a good question. Um, I can't remember. I don't remember. Maybe I made little creations as a student in my younger
Yeah.
years. I did. I guess one of the first ones. I don't know what I did as a young man, but I wrote a paper. I wrote
Hmm.
some of the essays I wrote in college. I was pretty proud of, and so um, they didn't really amount to much, but at the time they seemed like they were just spot right on. And I don't
Yeah.
know how much they changed the world, but I guess what they did is they gave me a little bit of spark and a little bit of, I could look back to that and say, hey, I did this. I could use that as a little bit of a boost my confidence to move
Hmm.
forward. So they did have some amount of value for that.
Yeah. So how has that kind of creative spark continued in your life and continued to show up and propel you forward?
Well, like I said, I'll tell you, for a lot of my life, when I was drinking to excess on a daily basis, I
Hmm.
would look at myself and I would say, I had bad beliefs about myself, and I didn't think that what I had to the offer of the world would, I had a lot of shame wrapped up in the
Yeah.
pain and destruction that I'd caused to other people. And I had this, I don't know, that now they call it moral injury, but basically what it means is that when you're not living consistent with what you know to be right.
Hmm.
So I had all this dynamic going on inside my head from this over drinking
Hmm.
continually. And whenever I had a thought of like, this would be a good idea, the other voice would say, nobody is going to listen to you, man.
Yeah.
And that's not a very good idea anyway. Probably 10 other people have going to done it. You can't do this. I mean, there's just,
Hmm.
and if I listened, there was more and more and more voices. Then I started to listen to those voices. And at the root of that was this shame. And so over a period of time, and I will say this, and I think it's very important that when I talk about confidence, I'm talking about self-confidence, self-esteem, our self-image, and our relationship with ourselves. If you wrap it all up into a whole thing called our beliefs about ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
I think that the big thing is that we as human beings look at our beliefs about ourselves as something that we kind of check the box and we accomplish as young people,
Mm.
hopefully, and we move on. And then as adults, as we get older and older, we look and we have proof that we already did this because they say, see what they're doing? That's how people with no confidence act. I, on
Mm.
the other hand, have lots of confidence and I don't do anything about it. We think that we have the whole thing wrapped up, where in truth, our beliefs about ourselves is an ongoing progression over our whole lives. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we think a thing about us and things are going pretty good. And then we either do something or somebody does something to us, and we have to really take a hard look and say, what does this mean about me?
Mm-hmm.
And if we are not paying attention to our beliefs about ourselves,
Yeah.
like I wasn't and struggled with for so long, we
Mm-hmm.
can't let our God-given gifts and our talent out and make our contribution and our gift to the world, man. I think we really owe it to the world to be able to do this. I think it's our responsibility. If we're willing to commit to
Mm-hmm.
positive beliefs about ourselves, like which is possible to do, we can
Yeah.
change that. Let me ask you this. What if you could believe anything you wanted to about yourself?
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Just saying,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so and so if you could, then maybe why wouldn't we?
Right.
Because it changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things is it changes is it gives us the confidence and the courage. You talk about courage and people are like, "Oh yeah, courage sounds real good," but it's hard.
Yeah. It is.
It's
It
hard to
totally is.
it's hard to put our stuff out there into the world and see, that's pretty risky. We
Yeah.
might get criticized, people might not even care, and all this stuff. So it takes courage,
Mhm.
which is a takes self-confidence to be able to do. And that's something that if we're aware of and willing to commit to, that
Yeah.
we can change.
I love all these pieces that you're talking about. Self-belief, self-confidence, all of that, and that it is this ongoing process. It doesn't end when we've checked a box, that it continues to go and grow along with us because we continue to grow also and learn new things and have new ideas and new things to share with other people. For individuals who really struggle on that self confidence piece, what's maybe one little tip to start that process
Okay,
towards
yep.
building self confidence?
You got it. We have 6 that we practice in our stable living. I'll give you one quick takeaway.
Yeah.
You've heard it before, but I don't know if we're all doing it. Okay.
Okay.
Because they aren't complicated. But one thing that we do, okay, most all of us are not paying attention to our thoughts and our words that we use about ourselves. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it matters.
Yeah.
Okay. So self-deprecating humor, maybe a little bit, but don't take it too far. Whoops, I just spilled that. I'm such an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, here's the deal. Become aware of your thoughts and words, both your thoughts and your words about yourself. And here's the measure. If it is not a thought or if it's not words that you would like to say or think about someone that you deeply love, you
Mm.
need to change that thought or those words about you. Okay. Because you,
Okay.
you can't begin to make this improvement in your beliefs about you if these thoughts and words don't start first.
Yeah, great tip. Absolutely. I love that asking that question. If these aren't things you would say to someone you deeply love, don't say them to yourself and find something that you would. Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, this, it sounds like you find inspiration from the smallest things in your daily life. But when you think about who or what is inspiring you, what do you come up with?
What's inspiring me? I think that I really believe that each of us somewhere, if we're not numbing out and we're not buffering from the reality and we're not trying to
Mm-hmm.
suppress feelings, and if we can handle a little bit of negative emotion and we're not trying to always feel better all the time about everything and
Mm-hmm.
snuffing our life out. I mean, if we're aware of and we're feeling and being present in the moment, I think that we will actually know that we'll be able to, our desires will become more present. So,
Mm.
in other words, if, I also, during this transformation thing I had, I lost 45 pounds because what I used to do, I didn't feel too good. I'd be eating and drinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so those are there's so many negative things that have a negative consequence is what I'm talking about, that we
Mm-hmm.
know we shouldn't be doing, but we continue to do anyway because we're suppressing a feeling that doesn't feel good. When we
Mm-hmm.
do less of that, we are able to hear the desires of our hearts more. And
Mm-hmm.
then we can, as we pay attention to those, have a little bit of confidence, then we can begin to make our mark on the world. And it fills your soul. I mean,
Mm.
it's so much worth it. And
Yeah.
you know what really fills my soul is not just like, oh, I'm so proud of what I've done. Look here, world, which is nice, right? But what's
Sure.
even better is when I see somebody that gets a gift that is able to use for good what I have
Mm.
presented to the world. And everybody has that ability, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm fantastic. Yes, keep doing it. I think that's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I just have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Well, I'll tell you, in my body, okay,
Mhm.
initially when I have the idea, it feels like, a shot of energy. I'm on,
Mm.
I got this. But when it comes time to do the work, it doesn't feel so much like that. It feels like, do I really want to do this? This sounds like work. And so then I have to, really um and I can find ways to procrastinate and put it off
Mhm.
because it starts to feel like it kind of looks painful, to be able
Yeah.
to get this thing done. I mean, I was really excited about it, but I mean, now it's time to do it and I'm not really sure. And so you've also probably heard of this concept, but I really go for the idea of creating B minus work, because
Mm.
one
Mhm.
of the things that holds me back inside of here is like, well, if it doesn't look good enough, I won't look good to the world. And if it's not perfect, I don't even want to do it. And so then
Yeah,
I start thinking of all these ways to not do it. Okay.
sure.
But if I say to myself, hey, I said I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep this promise to myself, which by the way is part of my beliefs about me because I need to
Mhm.
trust me. So if
Yeah.
I say that I'm going to do it, I say, okay, I'm going to do it. I know it's not going to be A plus, it's going to be B minus, and I'm going to be happy with it because I'm going to get it done. And that thought right there helps drive me through the part that
Mm.
is difficult. Then when it's done, and I go back and edit it a little bit, and I hope to
Mhm.
kind of get it maybe to an A minus or at least B plus, and then it feels happy again.
Nice. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing all of these little tidbits and tools and tricks that you have. If people want to learn more about the work you do, how could they go about doing that?
Thanks so much. We're the horsemanshipjourney.com. I have a couple of the free country code you can get. There's a couple of free resources. So if you have a time, thehorsemanshipjourney.com.
Perfect. I will add that to show notes so people have easy access. And thank you, Shane, so much for taking the time to chat with me. It's been such a treat.
Thanks again for having me, Mike.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.